arguably the world's lowest 65 Mustang. I've been on a mission to make it as fast as humanly possible, which I've done by adding a big fat cam, aluminum cylinder heads, and a supercharger. In this video, I'm gonna get it running, I'm gonna get it driving, and I'm gonna get it absolutely melting. 175 white wall tire. We've got a lot of work and a lot of burnouts to do, so let's get to work. Before I start actually doing manual labor, let me start with something satisfactory, which is crossing off so many things I forgot to in the last video. Heads are installed, cams installed, supercharger, distributor, rockers, head bolts, lifters, gauge, and we still have a lot to do. Among many other things, we failed in the last video when it came to ordering parts. I bought the wrong balancer, I bought the wrong headers, so I'm gonna start by installing the correct balancer, this super nice Romac 28 ounce balance, super shiny, super fancy balancer. Please tell me it's the right one. Check me out. Check me out. Oh.
How to install your harmonic balancer.
You look like the keyway's lined up. Just had to make sure.
How not to install a balancer, I say, as I install it the same way I have every balancer forever. Did you guys hear the impact change? It went that meant it was installed and torqued. Up next, the cheap eBay headers did not fit last week, so I got more expensive. Hedman headers are short tube. They should fit right on this car without modification, without lifting the motor up, without doing anything dumb. They look a little bit tighter. I sure do hope that they clear. I'm gonna start with the hard to install side that we could not get last time, because this is looking a lot better. I got high hopes. High hopes, mediocre expectations. Header.
I'm about to dent the sand out of you, buddy.
I find it troubling that shorty headers are so much harder to install on these cars than long tubes. When I put the long tubes in 8-ball, it was like, no problem. I hope Hedman headers out here watching this. Big sweet Hedman.
Was the designer of these headers blind? Finally, after a lot of fighting and jacking up the car, the driver's side header is started.
Now everybody knows you take the first two outermost bolts and you start them by hand and then you slide in the gaskets. Hedman, you got the wrong idea. eBay, you got the wrong idea. How about Felpro? Ah, see this? See that? That's what you want. I really do hope that this header goes in easier. This is the easy side. You hear me when I said this is the easy side? I don't believe you should have to buy headers and have to do this.
Finally, after some more hammering on that second header too, I got this thing slid into place, got the bolt started, and I can slip my gasket in.
Perfect.
And now, before I get those installed and tight, I'm gonna be smart and I'm gonna install the spark plugs now. Because on 8-ball, I didn't do that and I absolutely hated my life. I'm using Autolite AR3923s. These are one step colder than stock. They should be fine for this motor. And I'm gonna gap them to 28 thousandths. You wanna see how I do that? These are feeler gauges meant for creating very small calculated gaps. As you can see, they are labeled. So I've grabbed a 20 thou feeler gauge and an 8 thou feeler gauge. I'm going to slide them together to make 28 thou, and then I'm gonna do this. Basically, just hammer the spark plug on the floor until that plug gap is nice and tight. While I masterfully gap these plugs, cameraman is helping me out by installing them in the engine. Wow, cameraman, it looks like you're gonna eat them instead of installing them in the engine. Thanks. Now for the header bolts. One of these bolts is brutally cross-threaded and will not go in, so hopefully we don't have too much of a header tick, but we're gonna have one missing bolt, cause oh no. Now that the headers are in, I got these nice tall valve covers, and as you can see, they are not machined with the big gap for a bolt. Instead, they go all the way around, kind of like this, and I think that's gonna be totally necessary for those rockers.
I don't exactly remember where these valve cover gaskets came from, but they're the really nice, reusable rubber ones with the steel insert. They work so well. Right as I was tightening these, I made the genius realization that they don't have breather holes. You want some crankcase pressure ventilation on a boosted motor especially, so I'm gonna take these off and I'm gonna drill holes in them. Now since these don't have any breather holes, I intend on installing an oil catch can. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to drill 2 half-inch holes right here, and then coming in the mail, I've got some like barb fittings that will bolt to the valve covers, and then I can run hoses to an oil catch can. So I'm going to drill these right here, and then I might also make some sort of oil fill up for the front. Should be fine. Boom, clean half-inch holes right there. I'm gonna deburr that, and then I'm not quite sure what I'll do about an oil fill, but I know I can't fill oil in holes that small. And I only have 1 inch. All right, I did that very poorly, but it'll work. Yikes. I keep thinking I'm making it better, and in fact I'm making it worse. Well, it looks like a 3rd grader drew these holes with crayon, but they're clean and they'll work. Well, because my dumbass is now once again waiting for parts, I'm gonna set them aside. I'm moving right to the fuel system. I've had so many comments about how I ran it on 8-ball, putting the fuel pump down here and pulling fuel from the tank instead of being below the tank and pushing fuel to the front. I've ignored the comments. 8-ball is still running fine. I have not killed the fuel pump yet. So I'm going to put it in right down here, just like I did on 8-ball. My fuel pump is installed, plumbed, and grounded. I just gotta hook up the power wire with relay to it. And I'm also gonna install the MSD box, most likely like right here, just for easy access. Now this MSD box came as a kit with that distributor. It also came with an ignition coil. This one should be a little easier to wire up than normal because it came with a whole harness. And it's also nice and small. So I'm gonna mount this up and I'm gonna feel like I accomplished something. Installed beautifully. I purposely put it right next to the fuel pump so I can wire them both basically together because they're doing the same things. I hope this is plug and play, but it somehow looks 5 times more confusing than every other MSD box I have ever installed in my life. They normally use like 5 wires. Why does this one have 400? I've now separated what I do need from what I don't need. All of these wires here are supplemental extra like launch control and other things that I don't really need on this car. This connector here is for an MSD crank trigger like on an LS motor, and this ain't no LS motor. And the rest can kinda tuck away. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in this main harness here. I'm gonna take my distributor pickup and connect it to my distributor. I'm going to tuck the rest of the harness nicely. I spent the past hour or so just cleaning up wiring and getting the MSD box and fuel system ready to be plumbed and installed. At this point, I'm wiring up the MSD on trigger, which I'm using my speaker wire for my switch panel for, because this is just telling the MSD box to turn on. It's not like it's powering it or anything. So I'm going to wire that together, and then I have to connect the MSD box basically to the battery directly. I've got a strong ground, a strong positive wire, and if I do decide to install a tach, this is a wire I'll use for that, but I don't know if I care that much about that in this car, so we might leave that to the wind. But after that, I need to install a relay for the fuel pump and wire that relay in, and we're good to go. This thing's wired. I'm currently doctoring together a fairly ghetto ignition coil mount out of this random piece of scrap metal and a hose clamp. I got that snug. I can take my Blaster 2 coil, which I have dropped on the floor the other day. I am unsure if it will work. I will make sure I don't pinch my oil pressure line. Slide that into the hose clamp. And of course it will not clear the bolt, so it's going to be clamped rather sideways. Because why would it look good? Now I can tighten my trusty hose clamp, and my ignition coil is expertly mounted, not crooked at all. I'm getting really close to being done wiring. I've actually been at this for like 2 or 3 hours. We haven't filmed much of it because it's fairly boring, but
I'm currently installing the fuel pump relay, and I have already run all the wires for it. I just need to solder them together. Just like that, the relay itself is installed. We've got our fuel pump trigger wire that goes to this blue one right here. We've got this main power feed that goes to this heavy red. And then we've got this white wire, which is our trigger wire. Once all that's done, we are good to go. Crimping the power wire for the fuel pump to a spade connector so I can unplug it if I gotta change it.
and the wiring is done. I've been working on that most of the day. Real quick before I move on, I want to go over all the wiring I did. It's really super simple. We'll start at the starter solenoid. On the positive post that comes right off the battery, we've got this smaller fuse here, and that powers our switch panel as you saw in the last video. On this side, what I just wired, we have this heavier 30 amp fused power wire that powers both the fuel pump relay and the MSD box. So that's constant power. Off of our switch panel, we have that speaker wire off the one toggle switch. One side of the speaker wire tells the MSD box to turn on. The other side of the speaker wire tells the relay for the fuel pump to turn on. So when we flip that one switch, both of those things power on. Now the fan is a little bit different. I wired this straight to the battery, no fuse because it's such a short wire. I probably could have added one if I really wanted to be safe, but I'm not worried about it because I can see all the wiring right there. But we have our fused wire that goes to the fuel pump relay trigger, again, on the fuse box. And that comes up to this relay, and it of course tells the fan to turn on with its power and ground right here. That is the gist of all the wiring I did. Of course, I also connected the MSD box to the ignition coil and the distributor, but that's literally plug and play. Most of this is profoundly simple, and if you have a basic understanding of how relays work, it's not hard to wire things semi-properly in a car. If you don't know what a relay does, this is my most simple explanation possible. Basically, this allows you to safely turn something on. Instead of like running a heavy power wire like straight off the battery to a toggle switch, then to whatever you power, that's like the simplest way to make something work. It's just not safe. It's not fused. Switches usually aren't meant to handle that kind of current, but what a relay does is it handles the current, and it has a switch inside of it. So basically, you wire black wire to ground, red wire to constant power, the white wire, similar to what we did last video, you take power from another fuse source and wire it to the switch. So basically 12 volt off a switch tells this wire to trigger the relay to connect the power to whatever you're doing, and then that thing that you're connecting power to gets power from this blue wire. I don't know if that makes sense, but relays are really easy to install and they add a lot of safety. As you see, I like to wire fuses into everything I can, except for that fan. It'll be alright. But maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. That's just how I understand relays. Now moving on to the fuel system, because it's super simple to install. Carburetor gasket, spacer. The only reason I had to run the spacer is because of this fuel line. I was unable to find a fuel line setup for a dual feed that would not contact the supercharger. As you can see, this is a problem. Even if I were to take it off and flip it around, it would still be a problem. So I'm rocking with the spacer. The only downside to the spacer is that we're probably gonna have to take the scoop off the car. But is it really the end of the world? We can show this thing off. Carburetor just barely fits. Carburetor install. Right angle going on the fuel pump. I got these pre-bent fuel lines off Amazon, and they're pretty useful for tight spaces like this. We're gonna run it right under the MSD box, right into a fuel filter. That little fuel pump did come with a pre-filter, but they recommend that you use an external one anyways, so I'm gonna do that. I like using the fuel injection style hose clamps because they're less likely to strip and they clamp down a little bit tighter. Fuel line is on. Sweet.
Next thing I'm connecting is a vacuum line to the bottom of the carb, because
Over here, we have this tube that used to connect to the intake with a threaded port, but I don't have a threaded port on this intake. And I'm sure that's important, some sort of vacuum-related transmission operation. I actually don't really know, but I'm going to connect it to that port. Hopefully that provides enough vacuum. We'll see, should be all right.
last thing to hook up right here is my manifold boost reference line. Boom. The fuel system should be done.
I'm about at the end of my wrenching day today, but I want some mild fun victory here. So I'm going to cover up the engine with the valve covers loosely. And I'm sad to say it, but the scoop is gonna have to come off. Because as you can see, we are now far from scoop territory. And out of curiosity, I want to see if my throttle linkage will work. I want to see how far this thing sticks up through. And I also want to see if magically this scoop hole can clear a hood scoop. I could be installing plug wires or front accessories right now, but I'm really tired. Yikes. Our cut is actually pretty damn close. Still a little off. We're hitting the carburetor. We're probably gonna hit that. Oh, actually, I think we won't hit the fuel pressure gauge. And it actually looks like we might clear the throttle linkage too. I'm gonna do some eyeballing. Yikes, that's crooked. Whoops. That looks just about decent enough for me. I was able to retain most of the holes for the scoop if I ever do put the scoop back on. Now, if all goes right, I can toss this on. We can open the hood. Yeah, baby. It's looking kind of tough. Blueberry is definitely growing some balls. All right, I'll see you guys real soon.
It's a new day, and I'm starting with my front accessories because I'm still waiting on the hardware for the oil catch can. So I'm going to toss on the crank pulley, and I'm also going to install the supercharger pulley, which I hope fits around this aftermarket aluminum serpentine pulley. Oh my God. Why would it fit? It would be too easy if it fit. That is unironically really bad news. Oh, that sucks really bad.
Very disappointed to say I will be keeping a V-belt on this car. I hate V-belts on noise complaint. I used to fight them all the time. The car would fling them off, overheat, break me down all the time. I hate V-belts, but it's all I got right now. I can't use my supercharger spacer with the aftermarket pulley, so stock pulleys it is. Our spacer fits in here. We have our supercharger pulley. All of this stuff came off 8-ball. If you remember, I actually got this spacer custom machined by a friend of mine. I can go ahead and toss this full assembly on the crank damper. You know, before that, I'm actually gonna clearance the firewall for the fan though. It's gonna be easier without that in the way. Just like on 8-ball, in order to clear the belt drive to the supercharger, I'm gonna have to put this electric fan on the front of the radiator, making it a push fan. But to do that, I have to trim this portion of the core support down here. This lip that probably is pinch welded and probably does add structure to the car. I'm gonna cut it out. Brand new. Now I can put this on. That's a lot of pulleys. Pulley work.
Sure hope so. Woo! Water pump pulley. I'm seriously bumming right now. I really wanted a serpentine belt. Did not want this stupid crap.
Here I have another 1-wire alternator. However, I'm going to have to take it apart so I can put a V-belt pulley on it and really hope that it aligns. I don't know if it will, but we'll see. We'll find out. Ooh! Kind of thought that was gonna happen. See, I thought with my freaking brain on that one. Off comes the old pulley. These fits. Oh, money, baby. Hopefully this lines up well. I really like to use the fancy tensioner that comes in that serpentine kit, but I don't want to piece apart that serpentine kit because I'll use it on another car. It's on there. Hopefully it doesn't fall off. Hopefully I don't have to get royally angry at it at some point in this video for flying off and making the car overheat. Sure do hope not. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna remove my electric fan. I'm going to put it on the front of the radiator. But before I do that, I have to actually switch the fan blade around so that it will push air instead of pull it. I think I got that right. Because I did it wrong on 8-ball once and the fan didn't work. So I'm gonna do it right this time. mounting electric fans the right way using 8 zip ties. Zip ties, zip tied to themselves. Stick through the fan, get it through the rad, grab another zip tie. Never had a problem with this system. Perfect. Radiator. Woo, actually popped in so nicely. It didn't hate me today, that's cool. Radiator installed. Almost forgot the 1-wire alternator charge wire. This wire both tells the alternator to turn on and charges a battery. That's why I converted it. It's way simpler. One post goes on there, and then the other goes onto the starter solenoid, which does have a lot of wires on it at this point, but it's okay. Radiator hose installed. Now for the upper one, I'm gonna have to use a fancy metal hose to go through the supercharger because the pulley system gets in the way. I do not want to rub a hole in the rad hose. That would suck. Custom radiator hose. That is gonna be a very tight fit. Hopefully that works. Water neck, just need one more hose clamp to tighten that down. Now I can install the supercharger belt. Tensioner tight, belt on. Because now it's June, I'm not bothering at all with hooking my heat up, so I'm going to block off the heater hose ports. I normally despise the idea of doing this, but I do not currently have any heater hose plugs. So I have a heater hose and a bolt that I have hose clamped together, and hopefully it won't leak. Next thing I'm going to install is a beefier transmission cooler. I don't want to rely on the very small cooler portion on the bottom of the radiator. I'd rather use this beefy thing, which I will attach to the back of the radiator, and then hook the trans cooler lines right to it. Best way to install a transmission cooler is to zip tie it through the radiator. I actually went around the top of the radiator for most of this because the fan's in the way. But that still looks super duper professional, and their zip ties are totally never gonna get hot and melt and pop the trans cooler off, and the trans cooler will rub into the supercharger belt and cause a horrific transmission fluid leak while we're driving. That will never happen. One of the last steps to get the car running is spark plug wires. I'm gonna install these even though the valve covers aren't on yet. I'm still waiting for those stupid fittings in my stupid cascade. But worst possible case, I'll start the car up with holes in the valve covers and it'll just make a mess.
Last piece to the puzzle, ignition coil wire.
Boom, installed. Do you guys see that in the radiator? I was just about to top off the coolant and I looked in there and saw that just about every passageway that my eye could see is stuffed full of like crap. Like rusty, cruddy, yucky crap. And it's kind of making me wonder, was the radiator clogged that whole time? Now I did do a head gasket test and it failed, but the head gasket test kind of turned green instead of yellow. But I called it yellow because it was close. What if the whole reason we just tore the top end apart was because the rad was clogged? So I have another radiator. I'm just gonna do the easy thing because I haven't dumped anything in it yet. I'm gonna take this rad out, put another one in, hook it all back up, and then we'll keep going. Thankfully, that's very straightforward to remove. So yeah, it's looking really gross in there. I am going to swap that fan onto the exact same radiator that I have as extra, and then I'm gonna put it back in.
In we go, come on.
This one I had on the shelf is actually slightly thicker.
I really hope it fits.
It looks like it will. My parts are finally here. This might be a little ghetto, but I found these like boat barb fitting things that I think are meant to like vent stuff through the fiberglass of boats, but they're stainless steel. And look, they have O-rings inside, they're threaded, you tighten them down, and it basically can come through something and vent it. What I didn't realize was how stupidly tall they are, and they look really dumb. But the good news is I can now hook up my oil catch can, which I'm very happy about. So let's toss the rad in, do all this, and start this car!
We have a radiator installed, tossing in the valve covers now. Thank goodness, I'm starting to get nervous.
Of course, going with the theme of the car, my cheap valve covers, one bolt hole does not line up, but the rest do, so I'm gonna get them tight. Valve covers are installed, and damn, they look pretty cool. Catch can installed nice and tight. Unfortunately, that is the only place I could fit it in the engine bay comfortably, so I'm just gonna route the hoses directly to it. Hopefully they don't get in the way of our throttle linkage or anything. I'm gonna use this 1/2-inch rubber hose to vent my crankcase pressure over to my catch can. I want this to steer very, very clear of my throttle linkage. So I'm gonna run it behind the catch can and then back over, just so we know it won't tangle anything up. Woo! Getting somewhere. And boom, just like that, we have an oil catch can. We're not in the way of anything. Let's top it off with oil and fire it up. Ooh, get that pour, come on. Who needs a funnel, buddy? Not your buddy Tom. Okay, I'm nervous, but check this thing out. Catch can made it look even faster. Those valve covers are super tough. We're looking very shiny and very high performance. Guess what? Garage door's cracked. Battery is on. We're currently plugging in a timing light. It's getting real. I've got the coil disconnected. I think the distributor is about where it needs to be. I've advanced it slightly. We're aiming for 14 degrees initial timing, I think. So I'm gonna crank it over till we see oil pressure. I got some comments in the last video about doing that, like it's almost as bad as dry starting. This motor was not torn down to the bare block. There's still some semblance of oil down there. I'll crank it till I see oil pressure and then we'll fire up. We got oil pressure. Official first. Maybe start. It's super tight coming through the driver's side, so we've got working gauges, we've got oil pressure, a couple pumps. Timing sounds like it needs to be advanced a little more. Wake up for me. Alright, I need to be on the timing light. Will you idle for me, Blueberry? That's exactly what we want. It's idling at 14. We got 30 when we give it over 3,000 RPM. We're smoking everywhere off those headers. Oh, I'm excited. Blueberry's not supposed to sound like that. That thing's stopping. Now I just shut it off because it started climbing in temperature rather fast. However, I forgot to turn the fan on. Uh-oh. Damn. Temp gauge said it was getting... Woo! Thankfully that wasn't hot. Well, that's what you don't do when your car's getting hot. There might have actually been an air bubble in the cooling system. So we'll leave the cap off and let it run a little more with the fan on, then we'll see what happens. Almost 230, now it's cooling down. Maybe the thermostat was stuck. Now it's acting like, I mean, do you hear the water pounding around in there? Yet the water on top of the radiator is still cool. That tells me that the thermostat is not opening, which is also why the temperature keeps climbing. Well, we might have to fix the thermostat. Hey, when she's running, she sounds pretty good, don't she? Because I can't do anything until it cools off, I want to put this on. I did not like that scoop. Later that evening, where I put it on, I looked at pictures and I realized it looked hideous and terrible and goofy. So this will suit the car far better. And I sure do hope that it fits through my hood. Ooh. Hey, what you thinking, cameraman?
I like that.
I think that looks
a lot better.
Yeah, that's fitting. The finned look. Come on, man. It's cooled off for a while. I want to get it on the lift, so let's see if it moves. Sounded half that good before, ever. I'm popping off the thermostat, I'm draining and cooling out too, so hopefully we don't make too much of a mess. I'm excited to see if this fixes it. And if it doesn't, I'm gonna be mortified. Because what if we just worked on this car for 3 weeks and spent $2,000 on parts and it still overheats? That would sure be a bummer, wouldn't it? Mess probably incoming. Shot. Okay, or not. What I assume to be the issue is the thermostat, because this is the thermostat that was on 8-ball. And if you remember the demise of 8-ball with the supercharger on it, it involved getting it to probably 400 degrees internal temperature before literally melting the pistons. That thermostat was in there when it was at that temperature for probably close to an hour, and I think it might have destroyed the thermostat. Now, if I were smart and used my brain maybe 10% more of the time, I would have thought about this and said, hey, maybe we should take that thermostat out. But I didn't. So I'm really hoping that's the problem. But it also seemed like it because there was no coolant flowing. This radiator hose was cold, the bottom one was boiling hot. That tells me the motor was not opening the thermostat and letting the water cycle through. So I'm just not putting a thermostat in it so we can completely eradicate that from our minds. And I really hope it doesn't still overheat. Okay, surfaces are clean. We are heavily gooped up now. All right. Sure do hope there's enough silicone on this for it not to leak. But time will tell. Boom. Reinstalled. I'm gonna also seal up my little thread plug there because it was seeping when we had it running. So thread sealing on that, and then we'll work on something else. We are super close to driving this thing. I haven't put coolant in it yet because we gotta tackle one more thing. But real quick, headers in, plugs in, gauges in, fuel pump, boom, boom, reverse fan, boom. Basically, all I have to do is connect to the exhaust. The current exhaust is set up to go up and forwards for the stock manifolds, and the shorties are aimed down. So I'm gonna have to cut the pipe and adapt it to the shorties. It should be pretty simple, I hope it is at least. And I also gotta weld in a bung for the O2 sensor for the AFR gauge so we don't run this thing lean and melt its pistons. So let's get it up on the lift and do that now. I'm getting a little distracted. Right here what I'm messing with is like the vacuum shift modulator, and it controls how high the car revs before it shifts and how hard it shifts, basically with a turn of a screw. So I am playing with it. I'm gonna crank it up because I want this thing shifting hard, buddy. I just went about a turn and a half. Hopefully this thing's like, and I just like roast the clutches out of the 60-year-old C4. Who knows, maybe at some point someone put a shift kit in it. There's no way to tell the history, so I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. The headers hang a lot lower than the manifolds did, so I'm probably gonna have to cut this pipe pretty far down so I can raise the exhaust up where it needs to be and adapt it to the header. This one though looks pretty straightforward. I can probably cut it higher up and just do one little piece of pipe to make it work. So basically I'm gonna take a Sawzall and do some welding. And I also, come on. Damn, that flange got stuck in. Also don't need this manifold style flange. Damn, you're stuck as shit. Where's my hammer? Job cameraman, it might hit you. Oh, aren't you so lucky I caught it? I also need to drill a hole, a big hole, so I can feed my air fuel gauge plug through. Beautiful, beautiful. You know what? Actually, let me do this nicely and actually run it under the carpet. Just like that, we've run the AFR wire under the carpet, through a hole in the floor. Everything's back together, looking like it never happened. Now, let me actually do what I said I was gonna do 10 minutes ago. This right here is a header flange provided in the kit. So I'm gonna get these snugged up and then make the intermediate pipes between them and the down pipes. I have a straight piece of 2.5 with an opening. I've got this piece of 2 3/4 that slips over it flawlessly. Get the coupling side over the old pipe, and then this little cornered piece I just cut. Ooh! Hey, that fits up like a new car, buddy. Yes, sir, look at that. Tight fit. Got to do one more trim here. Maybe this piece of scrap pipe will work. I love my scrap pipe bin. Oh, gosh, that's so close. Almost on the money. I'll get, honestly, one more piece of this 2 3/4 pipe. Man, it's gonna be easy. What? Okay. You slide on there, and you turn over here. Almost got a winner. Yes, sir. Little gap to weld on the bottom of this, but I ain't worried about that. I'm gonna tack it up in place. We should be good to go. This is not comfortable, and it's slippery. All right, that's about as packed as I'm gonna get it right here. So I'm gonna drop down the down pipes, basically just pull them off the header so that I can weld this way more comfortably. There it is, one side down. Please be easier. 2 sides down, okay. While these are down, I'm also going to, this exhaust pipe right here for the O2 bung, it's gotta be above the 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock position so that the O2 sensor doesn't get water collecting in it. So I'm gonna try to drill it just like that right there. There it is. Oh, that hole's way too big now. Nice. Now did that make it so my O2 bung? Ah, I guess that works. O2 bung kind of like sits in there a little bit like that. All right. O2 bung is installed. I hope that lets up soon. I got burnouts to do. In other news, the exhaust is all welded, so now I'm gonna toss in the O2 sensor. Quick word, if you install an AEM air fuel gauge, damn! AEM gauges supplied O2 sensors are junk and they suck and they will stop working in about 3 days. So, Bosch sells an O2 sensor that is the exact same thing, exact same plug, and lasts far longer. The part number of that is 479-18807 for your reference. Now the only problem is we are left with a ridiculous amount of wire. So I'm gonna coil this up and probably tie it to the frame or maybe somewhere higher up so it won't drag on the ground and get destroyed. Because that is a very common problem with everything on this car. Well, that's less than ideal. I probably could have shortened them, but I don't want to. Perfect. Let's install the exhaust. Now for the reinstall. Come on, baby. Be nice to me. Come on, come on. Almost. Oh, there you are. There you are. Yeah, so basically these header flanges are kind of a pain in the ass, and it's also weird. The driver's side spins, passenger side does not.
Now what do you do?
Come on. Oh my gosh. There it is. Okay. Better not leak. Calling that installed. I am very excited to hear this car with tailpipes. But first, let's start spooling it. I really hope the thermostat delete fixed our problem and this car runs nice and cold and we can go for a drive. Are we ready? We're joined with Matt and Josh to see the real initial fire up with exhaust. Gotta turn that idle up a little bit. That's me. Make a small change there on the initial. It should be galloping a little bit harder. Timing a little bit. I backed it down to 12 initial, so 28 total, because 30 was a lot. So now let's go for a ride. What do you think? Sounds good. I want to drive it. Blower surge. The wipers work. What a pleasant surprise. Temperature's looking good. We're sticking at 150. So I do think the thermostat might have been the problem. I hope it was. That was like half throttle. It's like, rah! We're not gonna be able to gun it that well because it's raining out. All right, so half throttle is equivalent to full throttle before everything we did. Oh, you hear the blower? The blower's like, oh, that's awesome. Of course it has to be storming out for this, of course. Shifting early, so that little screw trick I did not help, but did you hear the blower? It goes, this thing's running mean, dude. I'm getting excited, cameraman. This thing's rowdy. Yeah. Traction is not possible in the rain. Of course it has to be storming right now. Hello. Still running nice and cold. This thing rips. It should not be that fast. Still not even hooking up. Okay. Now the problem it's facing right now is as soon as it shifts into second, it shifts into overdrive. And that's probably because I do not have the kickdown hooked up on the carburetor. just because it didn't work with the linkage, so I'm gonna have to like fabricate the proper linkage for that to make the kickdown work. But first and second is currently very pissed off, and honestly, we probably don't need to go that fast. Because this thing is insane. Oh, that's awesome. Look at that, look at that. Not even at 180. Because it's raining and I don't have much else to do, I'm gonna get that transmission kicked down to work. Check it out. Basically, I have this rod right here that I've bent at a 90-degree angle, and I'm gonna weld it to the throttle. So then, when the throttle opens, full throttle, it pulls that kickdown back. Now this kickdown has about an inch of travel, which is why I need to weld this rod with enough space to only engage the kickdown when it's at wide open throttle. I've got it marked pretty generally, so it should be fine. Does this work? We go wide open throttle. Oh, that's hot now. Look at that. Ready? We're gonna go wide open throttle. Oh yeah. At wide open throttle. Actually, at about any more than half throttle, the kickdown engages, which is honestly just where you want it, I think. So I'll call that perfectly engineered, and hopefully it makes the car not short shift into third. I am gonna weld that better though. That tight space created a pretty ugly weld. I don't know if I said it yet, but the reason the car short shifted on its own, even though I tightened up that screw on the vacuum actuator thing, is because of that kickdown thing. So I think that should fix it. It should shift higher without me manually shifting it, and it definitely won't short shift third. Guys, do you see that? It's not raining anymore. It's sunny, it's 75 degrees, and I'm so excited to see how fast Blueberry is. We need to go on a test drive right now, but first, let me hit that cold start. Hop in, come on. It sounds so mean. Check that out, by the way. The new tiny MSD box connects to Bluetooth, and you can watch the vitals on your phone. Oh, dude, driving this in dry weather is about to be insane. Half throttle feels wild. Also, you might not be able to hear it, but it's got like a slight bit of blower surge. Ready? That was half throttle. My heart's racing. Is yours? God damn! Cameraman. Blueberry's really fast. Blueberry's angry. Mr. Blueberry snorted cocaine. What did we do, cameraman? You hear the blower when I do that? He's like, oh, I'm so excited. It just lit up the tire, by the way, one little blip. Hear the blower? I mean, it shifts pretty early, but at least we know the kickdown works now, and it still pulls pretty hard. Oh, that was a cop, state trooper. All right, well, first off, I just allegedly did a burnout in front of a Mexican state trooper. Second off, it just acted like it fuel starved really bad, which was kind of weird. Third off, this car's insane. At half throttle, it's just as fast as it was NA. This thing's so cool. Well, allegedly, the Mexican state trooper, allegedly in Mexico, of course, after this long road trip that we have edited out, did not follow us all the way back to America, back to the shop, which is a good sign. Turns out we were running this thing on fumes. It started fuel starving after that little burnout, and I think the gas gauge is wrong. because there's not much fuel going through the fuel filter. So I actually have octane booster. This will help us stay safe and make sure we don't damage anything with our mildly aggressive timing. And I also am gonna top it off with 93, but we had to run to the gas station to get a couple jugs just to get us to the gas station. We're gonna drive to the gas station, and I'm giving Declan a turn to ride and film.
There's no seatbelt in here.
Yes, there is. You just have to pretend. I'm now realizing it's running slightly lean at high RPM, so I should not do that again until I rejet it, or else I'm gonna blow it up. The air fuel is like perfect up until like 3 or 4 grand, which makes sense because I have the carburetor jetted for 8 balls piece of motor, so this thing's definitely sucking more fuel down. We are full. Now let's go rejet that carb real quick. Air cleaner off. Everything is nice and hot, which is gonna make it lovely to work on. Thankfully, just gotta take this front bowl off. I'm gonna jet it up 2-3 sizes. Hopefully it's fixed. Damn. Destroyed the gasket. Damn, I hate that. And the jets currently in the carburetor are 68s. Wow, that is not a lot of fuel for the performance of this engine. I'm probably gonna up it to 72s. 68's out. I think 72s were actually in this carburetor before when it was on 8 ball. If that is not perfect, then we're still gonna do a burnout and finish the video off, because if you're watching this video the day it goes live, that means we finished filming 6 hours ago. We're not done. So let's slap this back together and go film an outro. And just like that, this thing should be good to go. I think it's time for one more test run and a real big burnout. Oh, hi Josh. You wanna come for a ride? Okay, it does not run lean at all anymore. The air fuel's perfect. It's at like max 12.4, which is still on the risky side for blown, but good enough for me. Rev limiter now raised to 6,500. She likes 6,500. She likes 6,500 a lot. One more thing. Let's actually melt that 175 white wall right now. I'm starting to think that having the fuel filter right in front of the headers is making it heat soak. So I'll fix that myself. But I think we've had plenty of fun this video, can't we say that? Come on, check it out. Blueberry should not look this fast, and it most definitely should not be this fast. This thing is an animal, actually faster than I expected it to be. Like, that last pull we did genuinely caught me by surprise. This thing absolutely lights up the tires and still is probably the lowest Mustang on the planet. Anyways, that was badass and a lot of fun. Thanks for following the build. Blueberry is awesome. I can't wait to cruise it. Thanks for being here on the best damn automotive content on YouTube. Check out tomsrefurb.shop. Check out Tom's Refurb Raw Patreon, and check out Speedy's Equipment, because that's where I sell all my awesome products and my extra content. I love you guys so much. Thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed the ride. Peace. Oh, I didn't cover it yet. Peace. I'll do this all day. Peace. Bye.